Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this Digital Swiss FP&A Board meeting, where we will be talking about building FP&A teams. My name is Hans Gobin. I am an interim FD, International FP&A Board and FP&A Trends Ambassador, and today I will be your facilitator. Just so you know, we've got almost 400 people joining us today. 75% is from Switzerland and the remainder from 30 other countries. So we have a great meeting in store for you today. Let me start by sharing with you what the agenda is for today. So today we're talking about building winning FP&A teams. We will talk about FP&A team roles. We will talk about how to build and sustain synergistic FP&A teams. How do we then adapt FP&A teams to the new normal? A case study. We will also have JTI present to us a one data project. And what does that mean for the team there? How can technology help in building those winning FP&A teams? And finally, conclusion, recommendation, and then we will finish off with the Q&A session. This slide shows to you the discussion subjects we've had in Switzerland so far in all the meetings, so please read it at your own leisure. It is now a good time for me to introduce to you the fantastic panelists we have for our meeting today. So I would like to ask the panelists to come and join me on the webcam, and I will introduce them one by one. Our first panelist today is Maria Miku. Maria is Executive Director Finance at Zurich Insurance Company, acting head of business performance controlling, and is also Deputy CFO. She's in charge of financial performance, monitoring of investment portfolio with teams located in 20 countries. She's got 20 years experience in capital markets, which comes in very, very handy. And today she will share with us how to build and sustain synergistic FP&A teams. Maria, great to have you on board with us today.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be part of such an amazing audience tonight.
And Maria joins us from Zurich. Thank you, Maria. Our second presenter today is Laurent Claes. Laurent is from Geneva, Laurent is from Geneva, but is today joining us from Milan. He's an FP&A board member there. He's group controlling director at YOOX Net-a-Porter, which is part of the famous Richemont group. He's responsible for consolidated FP&A reporting and analysis, tech operation controlling, as well as competitive analysis and benchmarking, both internal and external. Wealth of experience in FP&A, there's no need to add. Laurent, great to have you with us today.
Thanks, Hans. Happy to be here. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Laurent. Our third panelist is Svetlana Ryzik, Finance Project Director at JTI Tobacco, a finance leader with 25 years of experience in FP&A, strategic planning, cross-functional process redesign, integration and project management. Of course, a passion in team building as well. Today, Svetlana will share with us her transformation journey and what that meant for the good of the FP&A team. Svetlana, great to have you with us.
Thanks, Hans. It's my pleasure to be here.
And Svetlana joins us from Geneva. Our final speaker is Paolo Guerrieri, who is Solutions Architect at CCH Tagetik. Paolo has led several projects related to financial reporting, as we will see from his presentation. Paolo is an IT engineer, but also has got masters in business finance, which is fantastic to hear. Paolo joins us from Fribourg in Switzerland and will today share with us how we can use technology to enhance and build winning FP&A teams. Paolo, great to have you with us.
Thanks, Hans, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much, member of the panel. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a great panel for you today with insightful presentation and awaiting in the next half an hour, 1.5 hours. So thank you very much, panelists. If you could turn your webcam off. I've got a few more slides and then we can move into the first presentation. Just a quick slide here to highlight the projects and initiative FP&A Trends Group are doing. Just so you know, today we're bringing together Zurich and Geneva FP&A Board together, which is part of our 27 chapters, 16 countries and 4 continents. Also to highlight to you guys that we have now started best practice workshops and FP&A consultancy as well. So please read it at your own time. So what is the Digital FP&A Board? It's a 90 minutes webinar. We've got 4 polling questions for you, so please do participate and give us your ideas to what you're doing inside your own organization. It is an interactive Q&A session. You can ask questions via the chat box. You can start now if you've got any question, or please send us your question as and when we go through the presentation. We will attempt to answer all of them. A few today, but the rest will be answered via email. You can network with our speakers via LinkedIn. The presentation is available in handouts. You will receive the recording and a copy of presentation within a day after the meeting. And finally, on this page, please give us your feedback. When I close the session, you will get a feedback form. Very, very important for us to have that feedback. So please do give us. A quick slide on our technology sponsor, which is CCH Tagetik Wolters Kluwer. Of course, global software providers for FP&A and for consolidation with more than 1,000 customers worldwide. Very definitely present in Switzerland with Swarovski, Nissan, Migros, and one of the largest tobacco companies. So thank you very much, CCH Tagetik. I have a quick slide to share with you, which is the 5 critical FP&A team roles. Just to highlight there, the 5 key roles that the FP&A board traveling around the world have come up with. There are 2 new ones in them. So the architect and the data scientist, which probably I would like to quickly run through just to emphasize what they are if you don't know what they are. So what is a data architect or an FP&A architect? An FP&A architect understands drivers and data architecture. They build driver-based models. They implement flexible and analytical solutions based on those. What is a data scientist? A data scientist uses specific scientific, mathematical, statistical, and machine learning techniques to extract, cleanse, organize, combine, analyze, and present data to help organization in decision making. They are the bridge between data science and finance. And more we find FP&A teams with data scientists within them or data scientist skill set within them and the data architect. The other 3, I think, are quite normal, so I will not spend any time in going into detail on them. Just quickly wanted to share with you the I and the T shape. We've just gone through the 5 key skill set where you could see there. And traditionally, people were expert in one skills, or the other way to look at it was we wanted people that are expert in all of the skills. Which is now the I shape. But now you can see teams building around the T shape, which is the second part of the diagram here. So basically, specialists in 4 skill set there, as you can see in the first diagram, the analyst, the architect, the storyteller, and the influencer, but an expert data scientist. So you need to have knowledge of all of the 4 above, but be an expert in data science. And same applies for the second and the third T-shaped diagram. Moving on now. So today we'll talk about building teams, adapting teams, a case study, and technology. That brings me on nicely to our first presentation, which is from Maria Miku, who is Executive Finance Director at Zurich Insurance Company Limited, and she will talk to us about how to build and sustain synergistic FP&A teams. Maria, you're welcome. The floor is yours whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Hans. As we have heard earlier from Hans, there are various roles that an FP&A or controlling team has to cover nowadays. I have seen those different roles already in action in my professional career, and I would like to share some of the most impactful experiences with you tonight. In the past, I used to hire mostly controllers or accountants in a team. I think now we need to think wider than that. We need to think and embed the innovative part, technology part, the business value. Now we target, as we hear from Hans, the T-shaped experiences. We look at the enabler, the shapers of the business. So selecting top-notch candidates with diploma and certificates in finance is not enough anymore. We need a right diversity of intellectual capabilities, of the soft skills, of the right personalities that match the team culture and the team values. Now the question is, how do you put together an efficient, high-performing team with people with such different skills? So if I paraphrase what Henry Ford said about even more than 100 years ago, coming together is a beginning, staying together is progress, but working together is success. So next page. I am leading global teams spread on 3 different continents. We have planners, data scientists, process experts, business analysts, and it's amazing to see what we achieved in terms of innovation, in terms of ideation, from the powers of all those brains. And I like to call this the collective genius or the collective intelligence of the team. Together, we managed to find different solutions to the most difficult business challenges we have. And I'm sure I will not be able to reach this with a team with only particular skill. So now we have the skills. What about the personalities? We have the introverts, the extroverts, the leaders, the followers, and all around that. And I found that mixing those different personalities and even targeting on purpose different personalities help the dynamic of the team. It speeds up the team outcome in a miraculous way. Because some of us may really like more data. Some of us are really very good in storytelling. They are more extrovert, maybe. We have the right communication skills. So using both different personalities to engage with the business or to engage with senior management is an advantage. A good tool that I found in the past to quantify and see how these personalities work together is the MBTI test, the Myers-Briggs type indicator. How do you build this team? Well, a powerful team motivator for me is the common purpose, the team objective, even incentivized, the project rewards, a project objective, managing the team through the passion for the topic of the individual and not through rules, not through agile processes is very beneficial. On the next slide, I would like to talk a little bit about VUCA, and we'll hear more later today. Not because of the COVID situation we're right in, but also because of the important role we as controllers have in steering the volatility and uncertainty. VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And for me is really the reason why controllers are needed to come up with forecasts, with plans, with various scenario analysis. And I really believe we are the magicians for a VUCA world, where the past is not anymore predicting the future, where we need to have a prospective focus. We need to think about new modeling capabilities, about dynamic forecasting models, identifying the P&L risks to the business, and reacting fast, quick turnaround time, solving the problems of the business. In the past, I used to look for candidates speaking different languages. And because we live in Switzerland, we speak already 4 official languages here. Now I focus also on an additional language, which is for me the business language. Do you speak the business language? In my case, do you understand what capital markets, basic definitions of what they do and how they work, what an insurance product looks like? Do you understand the IT terminology, and are you able to learn quick? Do you have the capacity to translate complex analysis into factors, into easy bullet points for different audiences? I'm of a strong opinion that as controllers or FP&A, we are translators. We translate the accounting, the world, into the business world and business impact, and the vice versa. So we are business partners. We are business enablers. So we need to take the same language, the language of the business. Technology, I think, is very clear, technology and data. It develops with humankind. And over the last 2-3 years of my career, I spent a lot of time understanding design thinking methodologies, API, cloud capabilities, robotics, everything that's coming up in terms of data science. And especially in the financial services sector, as MI, where we have daily prices, we have a lot of securities we work on, and people start learning how to code, work with SQL databases, with different programming languages. Okay, so how do we develop and motivate this team? There are, on next page, there are many recipes that we can talk about tonight, but I would like to highlight to you only the most impactful that are in my mind. And one of them that sounds trivial, but it's not at all, is the team culture and the direction of and the vision that you, as a leader of the team, inspire the others to go towards. And unfortunately, this is a top-down aspect. So it is done by the leader of the team. It's very influenced by the personality and the mindset of the leader of the team. Why is it important? Well, if you have a dispersed team in a hybrid, in a virtual environment, people working in different countries with different culture, gender, background, mindset, you need principles, you need a target operating model for interaction between these teams. You need a way how to engage together. And in the experience, I see that one of the very good solution is engaging the team members in co-creation. So in creating together solutions for the team, in even designing the team strategy or the team objectives or the direction in which the team should develop. And we talked a lot about mindset, right? And I keep repeating myself on that topic. I think encouraging and rewarding the right mindset in the team is very important. Technical skills are very important to be rewarded too, because this is how the work gets done, but they are not only enough. The how people achieve those objectives, how do they go about the logic, how do they build a hypothesis for their analysis? Does the analysis have realistic assumptions or not at all? So this aspect, the how do they reach this outcome is very important. And do they have the right attitude as team worker, as commitment, as focus driven? In analysis, what I found very struggling is also what I call the pitfalls of analytics or of data analytics. And I call it sometimes the analysis paralysis. And what I mean by that is that we end up with so much analysis, with so many new reports, sometimes without value added or point brought for decision making. And as a leader, I need to prioritize what is important, how to shape the scope and the outcome of analysis, how to deal with materiality thresholds, how to shape the framework, and sometimes where to stop it if it's not bringing anywhere. So coaching is very important. And as leaders, we should keep a helicopter perspective. And what I mean by that is having the right perspective as stewards of the business, as owners of the P&L. And this helps us easily navigate the fine balance between long-term objectives of the company or sustainability and the short-term KPIs, quarterly reporting, quarterly profitability, and the accounting versus the economic reality, which is sometimes an element all of us struggle to find the balance. I'm passionate about this topic, but I will stop here and I'll take more questions later on. Thank you.
Maria, thank you very much. I really enjoyed all the elements, but I will just highlight the sustaining part of, which is key to me. And I always like to use this example of a football team where you can buy and bring the most expensive player, but if you don't sustain them, if you don't bring them together to play together, you know, it just falls apart. You could spend billions, but guess what? it just doesn't work. So thank you very much for that. I would like to invite fellow member panelists to come and join us on the webcam and to give us some comments on Maria's presentation and to add to it. So if I may start with yourself, Laurent, can you give us your quick comments, please?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Maria, for the presentation. Very interesting. I especially liked the coaching part. I think that's quite often underestimated as a job of a manager, because there's things like the reward mindset, right? The how versus the what, which is not that easy to learn if you're a young starter, right? The what comes natural, right? We're all finance. The how to get there, and especially now during this last year and the COVID, I think any central FP&A in the world never worked as hard as we did last year. But it's how they did it and the approach and the mindset that they had and how they were able to gel as a team really made the big difference. So for me, the coaching aspect, I think, is really the most important one. Thank you.
Svetlana, can I come to you, please?
Yes, thanks, Maria. It was a very interesting presentation. And what was particularly resonate to me is the idea to have the very different personality and to have very diverse team. Because in our project, we got a team member working in the 5 countries. So it was very challenging, very experience. But at the same time, it was very rewarding experience because we starting working as the one team, starting understand the tradition, the culture of the different country, and it makes our job much easier.
Thank you. And Paolo, finally to yourself.
Thanks, Maria, for the interesting presentation. On my side, I could recognize really how I was involved in the best project when there was a great team spirit. So great projects were related to a great team spirit. There was a strong identification of people around a name of the project, around the name of the team, even defining a specific language. We were finding ourselves speaking about acronyms that will belong just to the team. But in your presentation, I like the double aspect of, yes, creating a strong team identification, but on the other side, compensate at management level by a higher perspective, the helicopter perspective, in order to connect the commitment of the team to the overall strategy. That's what I like.
Thank you very much, member of the panelists. And Maria, thank you very much for your insight. Let us now hear from our attendees and what they think is the biggest barrier to team synergy. So let us go to our first polling question of the day. I'm just going to launch the polling question. If you can vote, please, that will be great. So what is the biggest barrier to team synergy in your organization, do you think? Is it a lack of alignment around goals? Is it different mindsets? Is it internal competitiveness? Is it knowledge deficits? Is it poor listening and communication skills? If you could vote, please. Lack of alignment is the first one. Different mindset is the second one. Third one is internal competitiveness. Fourth one, knowledge deficit. And the fifth one is poor listening and communication skills. I'll give it a few more seconds to vote, please. We've got 60% voted already. Another few seconds, and I'm going to close the poll now. So thank you very much for voting, and I'm going to share the outcome. So what do we see? 38% say a lack of alignment around goals, 22% different mindset, 11% internal competitiveness, 12% knowledge deficit, 17% is around poor listening and communicating skills. Maria, if I can come to you for some comments on this, please, some quick comments.
Yes, Hans, I'm so not surprised by the result, and that's why in my presentation I really mentioned the common objectives, the project objectives, the working together part, the glue that glues the team together, because alignment around goals and vision is the most important element, and the manager usually should make sure this is done. Different mindset, yeah, I see the difficulty, especially, you know, business has a mindset, controlling has a mindset, IT had another mindset, not to talk about the team, so the personalities inside the team that clearly have different mindsets from other parts of the world. And yeah, that's why for me it's a very important element to reward it. And I think I mentioned it: reward the right ones and explain the ones that you don't want to have in your teams. And listening and communication, yes, that's everywhere an important value added element.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Maria. And a quick comment from yourself, Laurent?
Yeah, sure. The lack of alignment around goals, that one happens quite often. I think it's not that easy in finance. You know, we're not a front-end business, so it's not as easy as let's say marketing or sales to get a clear goal, right? We don't have a clear target, because finding let's say a cost savings target is not as motivational. So this one is definitely back to what Maria was saying, the coaching aspect, right? The rewarding the right mindset of why we're here and what our added value is in the company. So, but this one is a hard one, I know.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, both. I will now hide it and we will go back to our presentations. So the next piece is adapting teams. Just before we move to that, I would like to remind the attendees, please, to send your question through via the chat box, and you can start asking now and we will try and attempt to answer all of them. So moving on, our next presentation, of course, is from Laurent Claes, who is Group Controlling Director at YOOX Net-a-Porter, part of Richmond Group. And today, Laurent will share with us adapting FP&A teams to the new normal and how he did it. So, Laurent, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Hans. So Hans asked me to talk to you guys tonight, just specifically on the case study of my case, in the sense that my experience is that in the last several months, I've moved from a very decentralized structure, similar to what Maria was saying, to a structure here based in Milan, which is 100% centralized. Meaning that everybody was used to work together, talk together, be in the same meetings face to face. And that was, of course, very rudely interrupted during the COVID. I fully agree, and I'm completely aligned with Maria was saying on how to build teams, how to get different personalities, how to get different competencies within your team. So I'll just add a couple of thoughts that I had based on that, but in general, I'm completely aligned. If you go to the next slide, Hans, my quotes from Simon Sinek, I'm a bit of a fan, because he keeps things very, very simple to me. The reason why this quote works for me is that I think the meetings that we have, especially in finance, are meetings to get to a goal, right? To get to a deliverable, to get to a result, which means that within a meeting, everybody has a role to play. It's a professional setting. It's where you try to get something out of it. Usually a win-win, but not always. So that relationship building, the trust building that's needed to have really good meetings, that's what's made in between the meetings, right? So I'm now in Italy. It's a very Latin country. I'm a bit Latin myself. So it's here in Italy, we say the meeting starts when you walk out of the meeting, right? You start talking, you start discussing really what everybody wants to get out of the meeting in between the meetings when you walk to get a coffee. I know it's very stereotypical, but that's really how it works. And all that fell away during the COVID period, where now here in Italy, people have been home for almost 18 months. And I've had now 4 team members that have come and joined our company without ever setting a foot in the office and without me having met them in person. So this is a very short case study on how we dealt with that here. So if you could go to the next slide, Hans. Very quickly on, sorry, little technical issue, I'm there. The Richmond Group, probably not as well known as JTI or Zurich. It's made up of jewelry maisons, watchmakers, and then some fashion maisons. Where I am is I'm in a little thing in the bottom, which says online luxury retailer. It's essentially the online platform for the Richmond Group, based in Italy, and is a recent acquisition. So if you could go to the next slide. So what happened? No, before COVID, how did we do it? So we build very strong culturally diverse teams. So to add on to what Maria was saying, yes, it's very important to get different skills, different personalities in the team, but I think the cultural aspect is very important too, especially in my case, because we are a centralized team. So the central team needs to reflect the overall business culture and the overall scope of the company. In terms of standardize the way of working, this is a big thing for me, because I think standardizing the way of working is not to kill creativity, but it's to build and to allow for more creativity within your teams. Right? It gives you time, it takes time away from consolidation, and it really helps to build this impactful team that can bring new and innovative ideas. Lots of face-to-face time, so with the direct managers to be able to help them and coach their teams. And then what we worked on here especially is a lot of short-term assignments, meaning going to sit at the desk of somebody else and sort of see what comes in. Like I say, to see what kind of emails they're getting, to shadow them, to do transversal projects, to really get to know each other and to see what the resource constraints are of the other teams. Now, this is how we used to build here a strong team, which was quite successful. And that, of course, was what was impacted during the COVID. So on the next slides, what I detailed out were really the biggest things that we saw. The big thing was, and that was kind of surprising, was that the voice of finance was quite diluted. Now, not for senior management, right? Because we're at the Exco, we're sitting at the table, but especially for middle management, we found that they don't have the same impact as they used to. And why is that? So we went through that with HR. We looked at the different reasons. The three that we found was, first of all, the threshold to senior leadership is lower, meaning you can invite whoever you want to a Zoom meeting, whereas before, you had to physically bring a junior to the table. But it's also less impactful because it doesn't leave the same impression as it used to. Another thing was that everybody multitasked during the meetings, right? Most of you are now multitasking, looking at your phones because it just never stops, meaning that we spend much more time during the meetings aligning to what the goals of the meetings are than before. And then the way of presenting, well, especially for the younger team members that I have, they're not used to be as impactful or as influential on Zoom as you are in person. Right? And especially the finance organization, it doesn't adapt itself as well to just have one or two slides that are really, really impactful. We tend to go through a lot of slides with a lot of numbers, right? To prove our point. And so that's where we found that really finance didn't have as much of a say as it used to. Now, what was important and what did happen is that we went all the way over to the other side of analysis. Right? I mean, in terms of FP&A, we've never been this important. We had to go through trends. We had to explain what was happening during the COVID situation. We had to go find the most random element or a fact that happened 3 years ago to sort of explain the trending that we're seeing now. But like Maria was saying, it's sort of death by analysis, right? It's no longer the FP&A that roams the halls and that gets a sense of the pulse of the company. And it was more a static function that just delivered reports. So on the next slide, Hans, if you will, the way we've tackled that is really by changing our way of working. First, internally, meaning much more skip level meetings with the direct reports below the direct line managers to see what they're working on. We did a lot of team breakouts. That's a really helpful thing if you want to try it. Zoom allows you to break out teams, to do workshops, even internally and even during meetings. Which only tends to happen during conferences, those breakout sessions. We now do them during team meetings as well. Very, very impactful. Another thing that we implemented were quick one-topic meetings. Now, I know that most meetings are supposed to be about one single thing, but what we started doing is just talk about the one thing, and if it's finished, we stop the meeting. So we ended up having meetings anywhere from 7 minutes to an hour, but it felt much more conclusive, and it felt much more as if we were ready and ready for the next step and ready to make a decision. Slightly on the downside, though, was that we had to go much more formal, right? Using business cases, sign-offs, formal recommendations, memos, because simply you couldn't look the other person in the eye anymore and say, okay, we agree. You know, as your finance business partner, you have the go ahead, and then we'll check back in 2 weeks. And then the other thing that we're now doing in the development, especially of the new joiners, is we have to go back to basics to induct them in the company. Usually what we did is, you know, they would shadow somebody, you would talk to them, you would sort of explain to them how we work, introduce them to people. What we now do is we use something called homework, but it's meant to be a joke, in the sense that you give them a bunch of work and then you check in every day or so, every 2 days, every week, depending on their seniority, to see what they've understood and what they need to go into more detail in. And that actually works quite well because everybody's stuck at home, right? So they have much more time than they usually would. And I find that the induction there goes much, much quicker. So those were a couple of things that we tried out, that we're trying out today, that work quite well. And it allows people to sort of come out of their shell. And then on the last slide, Hans, if you will, there are just things that don't work yet, where we're stuck, right? And that we're still working on, and I'm happy to get your ideas at the end, is how do you highlight your team if nobody meets them, right? How do you highlight new joiners? How do you present them to senior management if simply they're never in the office? Conversely, if you have a new CFO coming in, how do they meet the team? And the other thing is, how do I develop my teams to develop their storytelling skills, right? It's just that almost physical presence you need to have as a finance professional to convey your message, to be impactful, and to develop that over Zoom is, you know, we're struggling with that. And then the other thing, but that's just a pet peeve, this Zoom coffees, they're always dead on arrival. They don't work, not for me. We've tried many different versions, even on Slack. I mean, we've tried sort of everything. So how do you develop those water cooler moments, right? How do you develop those moments where you say, hey, let's have a chat, because at the end of a meeting, you close down Zoom or WebEx, and that's it, it's done. You know, the hanging on 5 minutes after a meeting, we tried that as well. We're struggling with that. So I just wanted to share a few examples of how we did it, what we're working on, what doesn't work yet, and I'm very happy to get your feedback on that as well. And that's it for me. Thank you very much. And Hans, I give it back to you.
Lots of things have changed over the last year with COVID and lots of unknowns. And thank you, Laurent, for taking us through your journey and for giving us lots of tips, but also for leaving us with a few questions that we may want to ask ourselves. So let me ask my fellow panelists to come and join us now and give us some comments on Laurent's presentation. So Maria, if I may start with yourself, Maria.
Thank you, Laurent. It resonated a lot with a lot of the situation we also encountered, and I applaud your creativity in terms of using this quick one-topic meeting. In my case, it's very tough to stick to one topic, but I'm very happy to hear this solution works for others. I would like to highlight a little bit on the water cooler moments, which are very important for the team unity and also for team creativity. And I think it's very difficult to replicate them in a hybrid environment. And that's why I think the new way of working will be a combination of the two, of hybrid and so home working and going to the office. But if I would like to answer one of your questions, the highlighting your team is nobody meets them. That's a tough one, especially if they are new and onboarding at the onboarding stage. One way that I tried to solve it during the year was to take the fellow colleagues that worked on the particular topic, on the particular analysis or report, take them with me in the Zoom call with the senior management, delegating them more responsibility to present and splitting somehow the agenda so that this person has also face time with senior management.
Thank you very much, Maria. Svetlana, to yourself, please.
Yeah, thanks, Laurent, for sharing very interesting experience and some ideas how you overcome with COVID challenges. So yeah, it's resonate a lot to my experience, and just to share some ideas, because we also miss this personal talking and this like water cooler moment. So what we did with our colleagues, that sometimes we catch up quickly in informal without the bosses and start a bit gossiping about the gossips about the company news, but it helps us to feel alive and to feel really the part of the team.
Thank you, Svetlana. Finally, Paolo.
On my side, I realized through Laurent's presentation that what we did during this year is really we copied our habits of being in office, translating them in a meeting. So we really fulfilled our agendas with meetings, call, but we didn't really shape them in another way. And it was interesting to hear from Laurent that they are trying to give a goal, give a structure, because new normal is not just a let's say reduce the copy of the previous normal. So I really enjoyed understanding that, because we are living this kind of normality, and I didn't focus on this element. And I completely agree with Laurent on the Zoom coffee. I mean, I can share the experience from my team. We have one call at every morning. I find really useful because it gives the idea of the team. If we go back to Maria's presentation, so that gives us the idea of a common commitment, but then having too much of this meeting is sort of translation of your WhatsApp agenda to your professional agenda, and I didn't like that. I'm skipping that.
Thank you very much, panelists, and thank you very much, Laurent, for your presentation. It is now a good time to learn from our fellow attendees about what is the biggest remote work challenge in our next polling question. So I've just launched this. If you can please, what is the biggest remote work challenge that you face in uncertain times, definitely around COVID? Communication issues and being out of the loop, interruption, loneliness and lack of human interaction, prioritizing your work, and working too much. If you can vote, please, that would be great. Once again, communication issues, first one. Interruption, second one. Third, loneliness and lack of human interaction. Fourth, prioritizing your work. And fifth, working too much. I'm now going to shut the poll and I'm going to share the results. So 30% have said communication issues and being out of the loop, 5% interruption, 41% loneliness and lack of human interaction, 1% prioritizing work, 23% working too much. If we can come to you yourself, Laurent, for a quick comment, please.
Yeah, sure. Look, the loneliness and lack of human interaction is something. It's the most important. Communication issues, being out of the loop, that's just a management that needs to be more transversal, it needs to be more transparent. But the loneliness, yes, I think we've all had it. At the end of the day, I think a lot of us also go to work because we have friends at work, because we have friendly colleagues, because it gives us a sense of purpose. And that was a big gap that we no longer have. Now, let's just hope most countries seem to getting out of it. I just did my first 2 days in the office a couple of weeks ago. So let's hope we can all get back to work soon.
Thank you, Laurent. And Svetlana, a quick comment from yourself?
Yeah, of course, no surprise by the result, and I agree that the loneliness and the lack of human interaction is the biggest challenge, and this is the particular challenge for the single people who are working in the different countries. So what we try to do is to help our colleagues to went through this period, and sometimes just set up the call to talk not about the work, but talk about some other topics just to support them. In our case, the communication issue was not a big problem, but working too much was our challenge.
Thank you very much, Svetlana. Thank you, Laurent. If we now hide the results and move on to our next bit of the presentation. So the next piece is the case study, and to share with us the case study, we've got Svetlana, who is project director at JTI. Svetlana, the mic is yours whenever you're ready.
Thanks, Hans. Can we move to the next slide? So I really like this famous expression from Edward Deming, in God we trust, but all other must bring data. I like it because without clean, harmonized, and reliable data, we could not play our role as a data analyst, storyteller, or influencer. So as many big companies, GTI collected a lot of data, but we were not very efficient, to be honest, in this data utilization. Can we move on? So a few years ago, GTI management launched one data project with the ultimate objective to implement one strategic enterprise data platform, which should be the single point of truth for the entire organization. So before the project, many analytical teams like SI or corporate FP&A spent a lot of time on data preparation, while after project, it was expected that the people will be more focused on the analysis and delivery actionable insights. So we started our project from the invention of the common language to enable the cross-market and cross-sources analysis. So we started from the analysis of the product definitions available in the many systems. And finally, we identified the limited set of product attributes, which were sufficient enough to define the product on shelf. So we called this combination of attribute the commercial SKU or the CSKU. So it was, I would say, the most difficult part of the project because it required a lot of alignment and discussion, like a mini project inside the project. But upon the alignment, we embedded this CSKU in all data sources across GTI. So as the next stage, we integrated financial and commercial data in one enterprise data warehouses. And after that, we were ready to implement the reporting tool to visualize data for the final users. And the next, please. So from the very beginning, we worked as one big cross-functional team. So FP&A, IT, M&S, SI were involved in the whole discussion, and we all together created our unified data warehouse. So upon warehouse delivery, we started interviewing the key stakeholders in the company to clarify the reporting requirements. And finally, we realized that we have two different user cases. So on one hand, we got the company management who was interested in the high-level reporting and the nice storytelling dashboards. But on the other hand, we got a big team of data analysts like SI or FP&A who are interested in the data exploration and slicing, dicing the data and going to the root of the problem. So for these people, we implemented the self-service tool. So what is important, that is the both tools are complementing each other and they are connected to the same data warehouse. So the result delivered by both systems, of course, are identical. So to make this solution sustainable, we put a lot of efforts behind the change management. And again, this was the new skills developed for the FP&A team during this project. So we worked together on the KPI ownership definition, and also we worked on the robust governance model. Can we move on, please? So it was a long journey. The project took about 3 years, and we just finished it a month ago. And now I am happy to share with you some learning or some key success factors. So GTI is a very big matrix company. So each regional president or the functional head used to use their own set of reports, and it was not easy, to be honest, to convince these people to change their mind and to start using the unified set of reports and dashboards. And without strong top-down direction, without the strong executive sponsorship, this project could not be implemented. So I would say this is the key prerequisite for the project success. The project was cross-functional, and it really required to change people's mindset. because we had to put the organizational priority in front of the functional priority. So it was not easy to overcome the working in silo attitude, but it was again the critical success factor. The last but not the least, we treated our IT team from the very beginning as the true business partner. So we invited IT team to all business meetings and design thinking workshop. So we started understanding better business requirements. But on the other hand, business listened to IT comments and better understand some technical peculiarities or the system's limitations. So yeah, it was a long and it was complex project. But the key benefit of this project is that it helped to FP&A team to develop the completely new skill set. Can we move on? Yes. So during the commercial SKU creation, data warehouse development, and BI tool selection, FP&A team act as a real data architect. When we start implementing self-service tool, FP&A guided our IT team on the KPIs which to be visualized and help to create the basics query which address the most common questions. So FP&A team is well known as a great storyteller. So during the design thinking workshops, FP&A played the leading role. So we created the reports and the dashboards which really tells the story and which helps the management to understand better the business performance. And how FP&A can influence? FP&A can influence via the data. So after the project implementation, many authorized company users from different functions have access to the finance data. And more we see that people from the different functions increase the finance IQ and start using the financial data to justify their proposal and decision. So yes, it was the long journey, and during this journey, we fixed the basics. So we cleaned up and harmonized our data. We created a big data warehouse for the organization, and we implemented the reporting tool that address different requirements. So now we are looking for the next stage. They're thinking about the forecasting and scenario planning, and potentially data science will be the next good challenge for our FP&A team. Basically, this is all from my side. Hans, the word is yours.
Svetlana shared with us how important data is and how important via that project, how that has helped to shape and mold the team, how the team has changed and all the skill set required by the team has changed. So thank you very much for that, Svetlana. Can I ask my member panelists to come and join us and give us some quick comments, please? So Maria, if I can start with yourself.
Svetlana, thanks a lot for this comprehensive overview of your project, and congratulations to finalize the first stage, and looking forward to hear about other stages. So I hear your challenges, and they are also related to executive sponsorship. And one way I saw beneficial to do is when this on board was not so clear, was including the business in the design of the data model or the data of the model of the platform, let's say, and getting them on board very, very early. So I understand how difficult it must have been for you. But what I like the most in what you explained earlier is to treat IT as a business partner, right? To make sure that they understand what we need as business owners, and to get them on board very early, to translate to them what we want. I can suppose this was not an easy task, right? The IT people have another way of thinking, we have another way of thinking. So I like to hear that you consider them as a business partner.
Thank you.
Thank you. Laurent, a quick comment from yourself, please.
Sure. Thanks, Svetlana. Yeah, it seems like it was a serious project. what I liked, especially and what resonates to me, is that self-service tool. I very much, so we did it ourselves now twice, and I very much like the fact that you combine it with the storytelling aspect. The idea of a self-service tool is not, I think, just to provide data to people, but when you say, designed by FP&A to deliver a cohesive story, I think that's quite often underestimated, that even a self-service dashboard, be it, whichever software, is supposed to tell a story, right? That works by itself, that stands by itself. So that I liked very much, and I think that's very, very important to do that from the beginning, both by including the business into it, as Maria was saying, but also just our added value as FP&A is really to always tell the story, right? To always convey a message, even if it's just a data self-service tool. So thank you for that.
And finally, Paolo, quick comment from yourself.
Yes, clearly I recognize the main pillar, the single point of truth, and it's something that I find in practically every project I'm involved to, about the fact of building this platform or relevant data and with a common interpretation. And every time I see that, that always reminds me of a quote from my computer science professor who was saying that in data there is just one truth, and when the truths are multiple and when there are several truths, it's just about poetry and politics. And the other element that I want to underline is the fact that you, like Svetlana, you introduced something that was missing in our description, because we were speaking about team and human touch, and there is this component of effort that comes out from your presentation, workload, hard workload, and that made me think about the change management, which is always this huge question mark behind the project we are involved to. So thanks for pointing out this aspect.
Thank you.
Great comments, panelists. Thank you very much. Let us move to listen from our attendees around those 5 key roles that we talked about. I am now launching the poll, and sorry, I've launched the poll. So if you can vote, please. So what role do you think is the most important for your organization? Is it the analyst? Is it the architect? The third one, the data scientist? The fourth one, the influencer? The fifth one, the storyteller? Please vote. So first option, analyst. Second option, architect. Third option, the data scientist. Fourth option, influencer. And the fifth option, the storyteller. If you could vote, please. I will now close the poll, and I'm just going to share the answer of the poll. So 12% said the analyst, 17% said the architect, 19% said the data scientist, 33% the influencer, and 19% the storyteller. Svetlana, can I come to yourself for a quick comment on the outcome, please?
Honestly, I'm a bit surprised how many people think that the data science role will be the most important one in the future organization. And also, I'm pleased with it. Of course, the traditional FP&A role like an influencer and the storyteller are still very important. But more and more, we see that organization is moving to this digital world. So it's a very interesting result.
Thank you very much. Paolo, a quick comment from yourself?
I was supporting architect because I'm myself an architect, but I lost. And I have to say that I'm sorry for analysts who are always supposed to understand data and they are not that considered. And they have to say that every time FP&A about the internal selling, and that's why I see that influencer and storyteller are winning.
Thank you very much, Paolo and Svetlana. I'm now going to hide it, and we will come to our next session, which is on technology. Before we go on to technology, I'd just like to remind the attendees that they can keep asking questions. We're getting lots of questions. We will attempt to answer all of your questions, so please don't stop. Carry on sending those. To talk to us about technology, we've got Paolo, who's senior solution architect at CCH Tagetik, and he will share with us how technology can help us build the winning FP&A team. Paolo, the mic is yours. Over to you.
Thanks, Hans. So what I'm presenting is a sort of analysis of the evolution of the FP&A Teams structure through the point of view of my experience. So you see represented, depicted in the upper part of the slide, some of, as a timeline, some of the projects I've been working with, the organization I've been working with. And this built for me a sort of ideal point of view, point of observation through which I've been looking at how FP&A has been evolving. You can recognize by the name that are presented on the slide that I've been involved in a variety of industries, for instance, financial services rather than industrial or retail. And dealing with this variety of industries means a lot of time dealing with a different kind of data model, I would say, or business model. And it means that FP&A is different because it can be industrial, focusing on unitary cost, or could be HR, focusing on FT and headcount. It can be related to financial services and so on. You can have something different in terms of business model. You can have something different in terms of horizon, because if you're investing a lot in specific asset, then the horizon of your planning change. But what I want to underline is over this variety, my point of observation made me aware of the fact that there was a sort of a classic era or a standard approach to FP&A. And that is common to all this variety of industries that now is evolving through a modernization of the FP&A processes. And this kind of effect has been for sure enhanced and leveraged by the pandemic time that we have been through. Can you move to the next slide? So when I was referring to the classic budget or to the standard approach, I remind myself of starting discussing about the organization of FP&A processes by mentioning, for instance, the calendar. So you have the calendar with specific phases: initial budget, budget validation of the budget, then a revision of the budget. And all these steps were booked on a specific part of the year, typically October. It depends on the fiscal year. And they were presented a sort of linear process in which people were involved with a strong, heavy workload in order to deliver figures with some typical handshake or some typical activities that were that we used to refer as top-down or bottom-up to refer to the let's say to the coordination between the different levels of budgeting. And this kind of effort was somehow invalidated by the fact of having invested a lot of time to come out with figures that were invalidated by some new assumption that was coming at the end of the budget. By the point of view of the team, which is the topic of the presentation, this approach, this standard approach, was related to specific role, so was a role-based approach, having the contributor, having the validator, the FP&A analyst. They were discussing mostly by mail, a lot of mail, and there was a clear attention to silos, a clear attention to keeping user right validation separated. So we had this kind of role-based model based on a linear peak of workload that was committing people in a specific part of the year. Now, let's see how things are evolving through the next slide. So even before the pandemic that we are all facing right now, even before the pandemic, by my point of view, I was observing an evolution of the FP&A process that is mainly due to the fact that there is a requirement, there is a request for a higher restatement, for the capability of simulating, of creating new simulation, responding to new assumption, and overall building a data-driven model. This can be done if all the action that I was describing in the section before, in the slide before, can be done in a quicker way, with a higher pace. It means that technology supports this kind of higher speed. and higher speed in which the ingredients can still be the same from, let's say, the classical approach. So top-down, bottom-up will still be there. But then there are more ingredients coming from new technologies. My colleagues were mentioning prediction, my colleagues were mentioning data scientists, artificial intelligence, and so on. The difference is that we don't have anymore this linear process, but we have a process that goes along, like in a loop that is presented in the slide, as a continuous forecasting that goes all around preparing data, applying that to the different modules, going beyond to some verticals like project, like cash flow planning, like specific deep dive in a specific section, and at the end propose the disclosure to BI or analytics element. I was saying that this kind of approach was in place already before the pandemic, but in terms of reporting processes, the pandemic really realized the famous proverb according to which necessity is the mother of invention. Because since then, I would say since the last year, I really saw a sort of unleashing of strength and will in order to modernize the process. So what is now the process? What is the new structure of the team related to this kind of modernization of the FP&A process? We can see that through the next slide. So if we were before in a role-based model with standard role that I was mentioning before, what we have now is, for sure, the main difference is the new role that you see represented in the slide. So you see data integration, data scientist, data analysis, artificial intelligence manager. This is the, let's say, the most macroscopic element. But overall, the structure of the process is not anymore linear, but you have loops that you see represented in the slide, like agile approach that connect as dotted lines the starting point based on data gathering to till the BI as a disclosure of the main insight. By the point of view of the team, this organization that is relying on higher pace, on restatement, is for sure related on enhancement of communication, of an higher communication. In terms of communication, what happened, according to me, is the fact that we move by this silos role-based approach to a sort of community-based approach that matches what Maria was saying about the team, having teams working together through the technological support that we can have every time with a strong identification. So it's like we moved our enhanced social life through social network into a sort of community approach in the working life. This community approach clearly is based on the capability of communicating more, but as we were saying before with the helicopter perspective, it's important that this enhancement in communication, this increase in communication can be contained in a backbone that can be represented by, for instance, by a workflow approach. The workflow ideally represent the scaffold, the backbone, that will contain the loops and the continuous accounting, the continuous forecasting, in order to keep clear what are the goals that has to be obtained. Now, clearly, I presented my story as two opposite, standard approach and new approach. In the real life, I'm seeing a lot of intermediate solution, but for sure, what I can assess as something that is going on is the transformation from one model to the other. And that's all for my side, and back to you, Hans.
Paolo, thank you very much. A great slide, end to end, as you called it, in terms of how to use technology to make the most in that FP&A team. So can I ask my fellow panelists to join us to give us some quick comments, please, on Paolo's presentation? Maria, if I may come to you first.
Paolo, thanks a lot for making IT processes and terminology very friendly to us, appear at least very friendly to us. I like very much to hear that the industry moves from these role-based approaches to the community-based approach is something that I think it brings us further. It's good to hear that they think about predictive forecasting, about building maybe some artificial intelligence elements inside to help us with these scenarios, because Corona showed it very clearly. We were not prepared for this kind of scenario. Who would think that pandemic could happen? It was only 1 in 100 years event, but it still happened. So I like to hear that the industry and the controlling industry thinks about that, and that the classic budget, fixed budget doesn't work anymore.
Laurent, quick comment from yourself.
Yes, thank you, Paolo. I wish we would all live in the world where everybody budgets this way. Look, what works the most for me, your presentation for sure, is your closed loop idea, right? We're working on that, and I think anybody who's starting to work on a rolling forecast is also starting to go to this loop idea, meaning you continuously update rather than doing a forecast, a budget, and more, in a timeline point of view. For sure, the data scientist role there, I think, is vital. We don't have enough of them yet to prep the data for the FP&A analysts to really work on. Right? Too often do I see, also in my teams, we spend 80% of the time just prepping the data, getting the right data, getting the right, order counts, average order units, whatever it might be, to be able to start the trending or the forecasting. So thank you for this. It really puts it in perspective of how you need to prepare. So thanks for that.
Finally, Svetlana, to you.
Thanks, Paolo. Really, your presentation sounds for me like our potential future. So it was really interesting, and I like this idea of the continuous forecasting and the community-based approach. It really sounds like something new and something very promising. So I'm really keen to know more about it. Maybe contact you later.
Thank you very much, panelists, and Paolo, thank you very much for the presentation. I think now that we've heard about technology, it's a good time to move on and listen from our attendees as to how they use modern technology to help those winning FP&A teams. So I'm now about to launch a poll. So the last poll of the day: do you currently use modern collaborative technology for FP&A? If you could vote, please. No, we do not. Sorry, yes, we do. No, we do not. But plan to implement. No, we do not, and do not plan to implement. So if you can vote, please. Yes, we do. No, we do not, but plan to implement. No, we do not, and do not plan to implement. I will give it another 5 seconds, and I will close the poll right now and share the results with yourself. So 37% say yes, we do, 47% say no, we do not, but plan to do so, and 16% say no, we do not, and do not plan to implement it. Paolo, if I may come to yourself and ask you for a quick comment on this, please, Paolo.
I guess that is coherent with the description that I was giving, meaning we are in a phase of changement. This changement has not involved everyone yet, because it's almost half and half. So yes, we do not, but we're going to do. And so I'm reassured to see this 47% that even though they're not doing, they're planning to embed, to embrace this kind of modification.
Absolutely, thank you, Paolo. I think it's the pandemic, the unknown, the uncertain environment that we have faced over the last few years have put things into perspective. So I'm hoping that those 47% in the next 6 months to a year convert into the 37%. So more and more people adopt it, and that will be the best way forward. So thank you very much for that. Let's hide it and let us now move on to the next session. But thank you very much, attendees, for sharing all the valuable insight that you've done in the last 4 polling questions. So it is now a good time to go to our key takeaway session, where I'll ask the panelists to come and join me with a webcam and their mic, and we will quickly go through one key takeaway from each of their sessions. So Maria, what will be your quick key takeaway from your session?
For me, it was very interesting to see everything from data to technology and to how to deal and adapt to the new world. So it was a very good overview, and I have some key learnings to for my teams. And the most important one, because everybody struggles with data and data integration, is to review again a lot of the Svetlana's learnings and to reflect a little bit more on them, and to see how we can in practice, how we can implement some of the learnings that Paolo brought to the team. And yes, I will remember the water cooler moment from Laurent. I'll make sure that my team doesn't end up in the Zoom fatigue. And I think this has been a very good session for me.
Thank you very much. Laurent?
Yes, thanks. I think my biggest takeaway, actually, I think Svetlana, thank you very much for I think it's so important, the senior leadership championship of our project. I know it's not specific to the winning FP&A teams, but it just gives us liberty to work. It gives us a framework within which we can work. And then, yeah, it's all about the mindsets. I know I keep coming back to it, so what Maria was saying, but frame the mindset of your teams, with or without COVID. I think that's where we can be successful. And I think that's where we make all the difference, right? That's, I think, where our added value is, to really get the company, see how a company works, and then just be insightful. Try to be as insightful as we can, and help senior management make the right decisions. Thanks.
Thank you, Laurent. Svetlana, quick takeaway from you.
I think it was a very interesting session, and I like both discussion about the skills and about the technology. But my key takeaway is from the skills perspective. I think we all, one way or another, talk about the business partnering. So Maria mentioned about the business language. Laurent told about the visibility and about the influence of the FP&A team. I also told about the partnering with the IT. So I believe more and more the concept of the finance as the business partner will evolve in our organizations.
And finally, Paolo, your quick takeaway, please.
I was thinking that last year was really the year, the critical year for FP&A teams, because I mean, the pandemic spread in February, March, was probably at the end of the first forecast of the year. So first forecast of the year to throw away. And somebody could have said, but it's the end of P&A, it's the end of planning. The opposite is happening, because we have seen with today's presentation that both on the human side, on the technological side, there is a strong push to the modernization and innovation. So it's a nice concept. It's a nice acknowledgement.
Great takeaway, guys. Let us move to our Q&A session now. And we will go around the house, and the first question comes to Maria. Maria, mindset is certainly an intriguing and deep topic. As we know, a dynamic and high-performing team values a lot of diversity, namely different mindsets. Could you please dive a little bit deeper into your reward mindset idea?
Yes, so the mindset element for me, and I think also Laurent highlighted that, the mindset is paramount for the way you accomplish an outcome, and the way you approach a task, or the way you think about. Let me give you an example, maybe, with what I mean by agility or turning around. Corona was the best example. To see that we needed people that could quickly take the ball and run with it. So prepare the analysis, explain it to people, do it quickly, reconcile the data, and so on. And for me, rewarding the people that the how around, also the technical skills, as I mentioned, they're very important, the controlling, the accounting even skills, but the how do you go around? How do you do that? Do you engage the business in answering this question? Do you do it yourself in a spreadsheet? How do you take, where is the source of the data coming from? So all these elements show the way of working. So how do you work to achieve an outcome? And in terms of rewarding, of course, there are, this individual performance assessments that we do. There are also the team's objectives and performance that we do. There's also a lot of feedback and coaching that you do. So rewarding, it's for me also very timely feedback to the team member that creating something outstanding in a very short period of time with a lot of pressure and taking the right assumptions for the analysis. So for me, rewarding, it goes more into the direction of motivating, of giving feedback, of coaching, of acknowledging the way they work, their mindset when dealing with a particular challenge.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you very much for that. Our second question goes to Laurent. Laurent, from your point of view, what will be the biggest difference between today's FP&A world trend? And of course, you've shared with us, what has happened throughout the COVID period, throughout the uncertain period, and where do you see this going in the next few years? What will be norm?
I think the norm for FP&A will be to really drive the BI in the company. It's to be able to, through much more data, through much more visualization of the data, the more technology-driven budgeting, for example, to still have that added value of explaining what's happening, highlighting the risk and opportunities, right? I think the more people, and let's say operations, marketing, sales, have access to their own data, I think the more important it's going to be that there is somebody behind them that tells a story and that is also driving the organization to take the right decisions. So I think we as FP&A, we need to catch up very quickly to become very technology savvy very quickly. I think FP&A probably has to be the lead on that, because otherwise I think we will be overpassed in the sense that you'll have other functions like sales or marketing doing all the analysis by themselves without having a framework of what, for example, what can we afford? What are our cash constraints for the year, right? So it's about putting all those analyses within a framework and within a reference for either a forecast or a budget. So BI for sure, with a strong data scientist element in your teams, and then of course the influencers that are always there.
Thank you, Laurent. Great answer there, which brings us nicely to the next question, which goes to Svetlana, and of course it is around BI too. Svetlana, have you experienced issues with inconsistent interpretation of data from standardized corporate reports versus self-service reports? Any issues you've experienced, and how?
No, it's a very good question. Thank you. So the concept was that, yes, we have some freedom in the reporting, but the data itself should be like secured and should be verified by IT. So as soon as data come to the data warehouse, it means nobody can change this data. People can only use this data. And from the governance perspective, again, it's very important to have the proper KPIs definition. That's why we said this change management is a very important element. I can give you a very simple example, not from finance, but from the M&S perspective. In the company, at least in my memory, we got at least 5 ways how to calculate share of market. So, but using the same data, but the way the algorithm was completely different. So what was agreed during the project, that we have one unified methodology to calculate the KPIs. And now we have no difference between the self-service or between the predefined BI tool. So it's not only about the data, but also about the governance.
Fantastic. That's a great answer. Thank you very much, Svetlana there. And the final question to Paolo. Paolo, of course, you've got the technology background, but what have you seen are the key challenges customers and companies facing at this point in time, and where do you see them invest next?
I really agree with the story that Svetlana shared with us. So this need of avoiding having the same KPI which has 3 interpretations for interpretation is not about technology. It's really about, as you were saying, about governance. And you know, a lot of time when I start discussing with FP&A people, there is a sort of idea that FP&A has to come out with some colorful dashboard. For sure, everybody wants colorful dashboard with a nice logo, but it's the ending point. I'm really a supporter. I'm really a strong supporter of the back end, what Svetlana was explaining us, the effort to make good data coming to the colorful dashboard. And so the real challenge is for data to be the right one, to do what Laurent was saying, being a support for explanation. Explain is the key word that has to be linked to a good data governance.
Thank you very much, Paolo, and thank you very much, members of the panel. If we move on now, if you would like to switch your webcam off and move on to what is coming up next. So just to highlight there, we've got a couple of FP&A Trends webinar, one on managing uncertainty, which follows on very nicely from this webinar today with predictive analytics on May the 12th. Please join. And the other one is, what does it involve to move to the digital and data driven FP&A? So those are 2 key dates for your diary. Please come and join us. It is now a good time to say thank you, and a big thank you to our sponsor, which is CCH Tagetik, without which the event would not have been possible, FP&A Trends as well. A big thank you to our panelists, which have shared with us their insight, their experience, and hopefully that's been very, very handy to yourself. A big thank you to all of you attendees for making the time, for giving us insight into your presentation as well. And just to leave you with a few ways to connect with ourselves. Just to let you know, when I close the webinar, which will be shortly, you've got the feedback session. So if you can join us and give us some feedback, that will be excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, just to let you know, this concludes our webinar for the day. Thank you very much for attending, and we hope to see you in the next one. Have a great day. Thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.